Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. So today I'm going to be doing my September faves and flops, the best and worst beauty products I have tested, tried, really fallen in love with, or absolutely hated this month. So the first product that I absolutely fell in love with is the Wet n Wild Impossible Primer. This is supposed to mattify the skin, control shine, prolong wear. It's supposed to also hydrate the skin, balance, and give your skin a nice boost of hydration. And then it's also supposed to smooth your skin but be silicone free. The fact that it's silicone free is awesome. Silicone can clog your pores. It isn't always the greatest ingredient. I will be honest with you, I'm not completely against silicone. I love Tarte Smoothing Primer. I love Professional for a long time, but I am finding there are also products that don't contain silicone that can do a similar job. To be fair, it is not necessarily completely comparable to the Tarte Smoothing, to Professional, Smashbox, literally make you look like your pores have disappeared. This one doesn't necessarily make you look like your pores have disappeared, but it does give a smoothing effect. It's maybe not quite as intense, but it is still smoothing. And I find that once you apply the makeup on top, you really wouldn't notice a difference between the more silicone based and this one. So ultimately, even though maybe it's not the best for being used alone, this one wouldn't really be quite comparable in that use. But once you apply the makeup, as I said, it's not a big difference to the ones that do contain silicone. So that is awesome. It's a very interesting texture. So as you can see, it literally looks like silicone. It actually looks more silicone based than my Professional does, but it does not contain silicone, which is awesome. And once you blend it in, it does, as you can see, smooth the skin. But it also is very comfortable, refreshing. You know how the ones that look like this sometimes can be hard to spread on the skin, can pill or bunch up. It spreads really easily. It feels almost cooling, like it turns into like a gel water-like formula, and I really, really like that. I also find that this does help prolong the wear of my makeup, control my shine, and as I said, it's very refreshing, but it is also feels hydrating to the skin. So I personally think all the claims are true about this one, and it is so affordable. So the next two products are also drugstore. You can save money and still have great makeup. So these are actually two foundations that I've really fallen in love with. The first one is the Maybelline Super Stay Active Wear 30-Hour Foundation. This is their active wear. So this is supposed to be extremely mattifying and oil controlling, super long wearing, says 30 hours. I mean, I have not tested that, but I've given it quite a few good wear tests. It's also supposed to be full coverage, feel light as air. It is definitely extremely matte, but as I'm combination skin, I find some matte foundations can be a little bit difficult for me because they can look really, really dry on the skin. And I did find that this one looked maybe a little bit dry, but it lasts all day. And if you put a little bit of setting spray on, you would never know it. It is a beautiful, really matte finish. I do prefer natural finish, but I like matte finish because it lasts longer. This one is definitely not drying, but it is very matte. So it really lasts all day. In my review of this, I was definitely really, really, really happy with the coverage. I would say it's maybe not quite 100% full coverage after testing it a little bit more, especially if you have acne. If you don't have acne, it will feel like full coverage. If you have acne, it doesn't necessarily cover everything. So I would say it's a very high medium to full. It is way more comfortable in my opinion and more long wearing than their 24-hour. So I do really, really like this. The other product that I really, really love is also from the drugstore, and it is the Catrice True Skin Hydrating Foundation. This is an extremely hyped up, highly rated foundation. And when I actually first tested it, I really liked it, but I wasn't like wowed like I thought I was gonna be. But after testing it a little bit more, I really do like this. Number one, it looks beautiful on the skin. It's full coverage. They're very similar in terms of coverage. This one though is much more hydrating on the skin. It looks nice and fresh. It doesn't look dull or dry at all. The only thing is this one doesn't last as long as this one on my skin because I do have combination to oily. So if you're combination to oily, this one is going to last longer. If you like a more natural to radiant finish, this one looks so beautiful and feels so comfortable and lightweight on the skin as well. They both are lightweight. This one is a little more comfortable and like hydrating, but because this one doesn't last as long, I just like them equally for different reasons. And because of that, I actually really enjoy mixing these two. I actually wore that today. I find if I mix these two, it lasts a little longer than if I were to wear this one, and it looks a little nicer than if I were to wear this one. So that is my little trick of the trade. These are beautiful foundations, super affordable, and I honestly recommend them both. I think you guys would love them both. The next product is a little bit more expensive, but honestly worth every dime. One size, you've done it again. I have fallen in love with the concealer. This is the 4th or 5th time I've used it. The first time I used it, it did wear off on my nose and my chin, got a little cakey on my lip, but to be fair, I got my hair done, wore a mask, I was hot for 3.5 hours. I was like heavy breathing, man. I was heavy. Do you know when you wear a mask and it's like you feel like your lip is getting sweaty, but it's kind of just the moisture from your breath? That I find can break down the foundation on my lip, and then it also wore off on my chin and my nose, but I was already oily. I'd had my makeup on for 10 hours before I put my mask on. So I was not too hard on this that day, and ever since I've worn it, I've had no issues. It has barely creased under my eyes. I can get away without using eyeshadow primer. It holds up really well. It lasts all day long. It doesn't look dry under the eyes or crepey. It doesn't look cakey. Good coverage. It's not full coverage. It is advertised as a medium to full. I don't personally think it's full coverage. I think it's medium and buildable, but I still am really happy with the coverage, and it is extremely smoothing to the skin, and that is what it's basically advertised to do, and I really do think that claim is true. So if you do have enlarged pores and texture like me, you will love it. It really just smooths under the eyes, beside the nose. That is the area I find I'm most self-conscious of. It can look very textured and cakey very easily, and this is super beautiful on the skin. It is also matte finish, but it's not too matte. It has a nice drying time, so you have a lot of room to play with it. So yeah, I really, really love this. The next product I absolutely love is from the brand Say, and this is a brand I had never tested. These did come out at the beginning of the year, so I was a little late in the game when it came to this, but this is one of the products that I tested in my testing new at Sephora, but it is the Dew Blush. This is a liquid cheek flush, and it is one of my favorites right now. First of all, love the applicator. It picks up a ton of product. You can apply this right onto the skin. It doesn't dry down really fast. It has that dewy finish, and so it's not gonna dry down. Easy to work with, easy to blend. It's very pigmented, and it has a really nice dewy finish without being like greasy or oily looking. It works well over top of foundation. It's natural looking, beautiful on the skin, doesn't mess with the makeup, doesn't disturb it or break it down. My best and worst liquid and cream blushes is going to be really hard for me. I'm gonna have a time trying to pick out my favorites. I have 2 Colourpop palettes. The reason I included these, because I already did include some cheek palettes from Colourpop last month, but the reason I decided to include these 2 is because they did come out with the Your Cheeky collection, which was a new launch of cheek palettes, but this time they include a bronzer. So these ones I honestly love, 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 love a million times more than their initial cheek palettes. The initial quads had 3 blushes and 1 highlight. These now have 2 blushes, 1 highlight, and 1 bronzer. I think it's totally worth your money. It would be your full cheek in one palette. It's so easy. The formulas are great. The bronzers are matte powder bronzers that are very pigmented, very blendable. Their highlights are their Super Shock, which are beautiful. And look at how pigmented, light reflective, creamy, like that wet look. They're easy to blend, honestly stunning. And then their blushes come in different finishes. So my 2 favorites from the full Your Cheeky collection are this one here. I just swatched the highlight for you from this one. It's called Just a Flush. So the 2 are obviously gonna be the ones that are more suited to fair skin tones, because obviously they're gonna be the ones that I would use more. So I really love this one because number 1, the highlight is like a nice kind of champagne-y white gold type highlight, which is absolutely my favorite. The bronzer is perfect for my skin tone, and the blushes are really, really pretty because you have a more peachy side. This one's on the more rosy side, so you get a more variety when it comes to the blush. And then this one here I really like as well. This is the Born to Blush. The highlight is a little bit more golden, but it's light enough for fair skin, which I love. Like, I love a nice golden highlight as well, but a lot of times they are so dark for fair skin tones or too yellow. This one is so pretty, again in the Super Shock formula. A+. The bronzer is a little bit cooler toned, which I think is why I love this bronzer the best out of all of them, because it really just goes with my skin tone the most. And then the reason I love it is honestly these blushes. They are so beautiful. They have the more peachy warm undertones, which is my favorite tone. Definitely I recommend the ones from the Your Cheeky collection. The ones that include a bronzer, I just feel like you get more for your money. The next product I'm actually quite surprised that I am including in this video. The first time I used it, it was kind of more of a me thing. It was not the product. I kind of just totally failed when I tested this. And it is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Freeze, surprisingly. I first applied a brow pencil and then I went in with this. Total fail. I mean, you can do it, it worked, but it kind of made a mess. I tested it again a couple times, including today, and I would say it's a success. I've worn this for hours now. My brows are still in place, and it gave me the feathery look, even though I felt like I was never going to be able to achieve it, and I honestly really, really like it. Now, to be fair, it's still not like the crazy feathery everywhere, but it really did give me the feathery look with my eyebrows, and I never thought I'd be able to do that. I recommend, especially if you have really, really thick hairs, to do this first before you put on foundation, before you put on anything else except for your skincare. I would recommend doing this because I feel like you can really work it through the brow hair. You can apply as much as you need without worrying about disturbing your foundation or disturbing the brow product that you already apply. You really work it through the brow hairs, and I find when you do it with nothing on, you can, as I said, apply as much as you need. After I tried it the second time, I was like, whoa, this is really how it's supposed to work, and I could see why everyone loved it. After doing that, I just went in with some of my pomade to get that kind of more precise line underneath and fill it in a little bit more, and then I just used a brow tint pen and I just made a few extra like wispy hairs to make it look more feathery and full. And I got the look I was looking for, and it's holding so far all day long. This is a stunning product and it really does work. I love it. And I honestly feel like I might do my brows like this from now on. While we're talking about brows, I actually have two more brow products that I've fallen in love with this month. One is high-end, one is drugstore, and they both are beautiful. So the first one is the Dior Brow Styler Brow Pencil. This is not new, but this is actually new to me. This is nice because you can just twist it up and down. It's nice and precise. So it's nice and thin, but it really is very pigmented. I find sometimes with precise brow pencils, it's really hard for me to get it truly pigmented because I do like a more filled in look. This is very pigmented. The shade is super stunning. I got it in universal dark brown. It's easy to do kind of like more wispy hair-like, but you can also fill it in quickly because it is nice and creamy and pigmented and it has great payoff, but it's also precise enough that you can get more thin lines as well. Honestly, one of the absolute best brow pencils I've ever used. I like it just as much as I like my Anastasia pomade. If I'm saying I like a brow pencil as much as I like my pomade, that is saying something. It's also very smudgeable, like if you want to kind of soften it, but it is very long wearing as well. It lasts all day long. Now, if you're looking for something that's a little bit more affordable, I have definitely found my new drugstore holy grail brow pencil, and that is the e.l.f. Instant Lift Brow Pencil. I was definitely late to the game when it came to this one, and it is so worth it. Now, the only thing is it's definitely not as precise as the Dior or as some maybe other great brow pencils, but for being so thick, it really does get quite thin lines. Like if you use the kind of the side of it, you can still get just as thin of a line as the Dior one, or you can also go in with the very tip that is much thicker, and you can fill in so quickly. This is the quickest brow pencil I've ever used. It is definitely the easiest one I've used. Probably wouldn't be able to get very wispy hair like strokes with this. This is more for a kind of filled in look. It's like $2. I would pay more for this. I was so blown away. I will link my reviews of this stuff down below as well if you want to see these products like in action. I did get it in the shade neutral brown. I like the Dior better because it is more precise, but it is also way more expensive. This does a really dang good job. Let's move on to eyes. The first product is the Natasha Denona Retro Palette. It is what is on my eyes right now, and I've used it like a lot in the last few weeks. It really is probably one of the most versatile palettes in her collection. Enough transition shades that you can really blend out and use for everyday, soft, simple looks. But then you have also the dark, the rich, to create really nice glam looks. It's the absolute perfect palette for fall, but it also, I think, in my opinion, is very versatile for all year round. You know, you do have more warm tones here and light enough shades. I think you could create some nice warm summer looks. You have the cool tones and the rich, like berry tones for winter. You have like some nice lighter purples, lilacs, that screams spring. I think it's a very versatile palette. It has beautiful formulas, lots of the cream to powder, which in my opinion, her cream to powders are the best. So pigmented, very blendable. Like you can use them like a typical matte, but they're very rich and creamy. Typical metallic, which is so pigmented and rich and great payoff, like as you can see. And it comes with a variety of like softer metallics and then nice bright bam. There is like a glitter topper right here, which I've fallen in love with. Sometimes it's not very noticeable because it's just like you apply it and then, okay, it added a bit lighter sheen. If you go out in the sun, especially I find I notice it in the car because there's a mirror there, like you can see the little glitters glistening everywhere. I'm telling you, it is the most stunning look. Very beautiful palette. I've created 2 glam looks in my dedicated review when I initially tested it. I've created an everyday look in my Fab and Five series, and I've also used it in my personal time many times. And every look that I've created, I'm like, this is just so good. Like this palette really sets you up for some beautiful looks. The next product is by Huda Beauty, and it is the Life Liner, which is the Quick and Easy Precision liquid liner. So this one I was like not blown away by when I reviewed it. I don't know why, because it really turned out really great. It did bleed a tiny bit in my one corner, but it was the very first time I had used it. So since testing it, I've definitely learned as long as you keep a light hand in the inner corner, which means you just like very softly want to touch your eye, it disperses enough product to create a very easy, quick, precise line. It's named perfectly. It is definitely the most precise liner I've ever used. It is so tiny. It maybe takes a tiny bit longer if you're going for a more bold look. Like I would recommend this if you're looking for precision. It's meant for precise lines. Like you can get in the inner corner super thin, so then you're not like taking up too much lid space. You can create really precise wings. I am using it today. The inner corners didn't bleed at all. Aside from the one time on the one eye, it hasn't bled at all. So I would say if you are mindful to keep a light hand in the inner corner, it doesn't bleed, it doesn't transfer, it's super long wearing, it's rich black, it's nice and matte, but not drying. So it's definitely an A+ for me. The next product is from the drugstore, and it is also eyeshadow. This is from Wet n Wild, the Color Icon eyeshadow palette in Camo-Flaunt. I really love these because they kind of remind me of the Natasha Denona mini palettes, but they are like a million times more affordable. And the eyeshadow is really beautiful. It comes with a nice rich brown. It comes with a nice soft brown transition shade. It comes with 2 metallics, one a little more subtle, one a little more bright, and bam. And then it also comes with a multicolor glitter. All formulas were beautiful. The mattes are blendable, pigmented. Metallics are, well, the softer one isn't as great. This one here is really, really pretty. Like you'll see here, very comparable to the Natasha Denona metallics. Like, do you see how it's very light reflective, pigmented? Payoff is great. And the glitter also is really easy to apply. Like you could use glitter glue. It might make it a little bit easier, but it does pay off pretty well. It's beautiful and like fun. And I find that this one is really great because it comes with so many different textures, which I love. So I definitely recommend picking this up because it's obviously a very affordable option. The next fave is my Bite Beauty Power Move Soft Matte Lipstick. These are their reformulated lipsticks, and this is the shade Pomelo. I absolutely love this shade. It's like a nice peachy pink. The reason I love these is, number one, they are pigmented. They're not like the most pigmented lipsticks I've used, but they're buildable. So you can either go in with like a nice wash of color or build it to a more full coverage lipstick. They are a nice soft matte, like that diffused matte kind of blurring effect. So it looks really nice and smooth on the lips, but they are also very lightweight and long wearing. So they are lightweight and comfortable. They're hydrating. I wouldn't say they're overly hydrating. It's not like I take it off and I'm like, wow, it's like a lip treatment. but they don't dry your lips out, and they also last so long. With lip liner, it lasted like 6 to 8 hours before it started to fully fade. Like, that's a long time for a lipstick. And the best thing is you barely feel it on your lips at all. I could wear it all day long and you barely even notice it's there. It's also made with really, really good ingredients. Like, they're a more clean brand. That is always good. And then the last fave of the month is by Maybelline. It is the Lifter Gloss. This is one of the most stunning glosses I've ever used, and it is so much more affordable than my high-end options. Really makes your lips look nice and juicy and full. It's comfortable, and it's also very hydrating to the lips. It contains hyaluronic acid. So good. Let's just like pop a tiny bit on the lips. It really just accentuates the contour of your lips and makes your lips look so much more full and juicy, and it's not sticky at all. I recommend this gloss as well. This is in the shade Ice, which I love. Like, it's more clear, so you can pop it on any lipstick, but it has a little bit of a micro fine glitter. Okay, so now that we've talked about all this incredible makeup that I absolutely love and absolutely recommend, let's talk about the few products that I didn't love so much this month. So the first product is the Multitasker Concealer. So the reasons I don't like this is, number one, it has a very, very quick drying time. I have so many other concealers that I can apply all over my face, let it sit for a few minutes, and it still blends out beautifully. So I just personally don't like concealers that have very quick drying times. Now, I have some in my collection that have a bit of a faster drying time that I maybe have to be a little more mindful, but are worth it. This one is very quick. Left it for maybe 1.5 to 2 minutes. Blended it out, and it was to the point where I'm like blending and it's lifting the product around the concealer but not moving. It wouldn't budge, it wouldn't blend. It got cakey. Coverage was decent. It did brighten the under eyes. It did conceal, but it was also very sticky. So it wasn't the most comfortable. It also went cakey and funky, separated by the end of the day, and it also has a very, very quick drying time. I just personally don't recommend it. There are so many other concealers from the drugstore that I really recommend, and I just personally think this is a pass for me. So the next two products are actually from the same collection, and that is the MAC Fall Tempting Fate collection. Now, I liked a few of the products. Like, for example, I really liked the lipsticks. The dark green liner was beautiful and rich, but these two products here just personally were not worth the purchase for me. The first one, in my opinion, is just like a total fail, and that is the Eye Kohl pencil in Better Than Beige. This is supposed to be like a nice gold, antique kind of golden liner. I'm like really, 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 really going in. Where is it? I applied this on the waterline and the inner lower lash line. Barely showed up. It has no bam to it. You want it to be noticeable. And this, personally, I just think didn't have the payoff. It wasn't pigmented. It wasn't like reflective enough. It just is personally a waste of money, in my opinion. The next product, and this is one I debated, like, should I include it as a flop? I don't know, like, is it fully a flop? But I just really want to be completely honest in these videos. And this one, to me, is not worth the money, in my opinion. Now, I had quite a few people comment on my review, like trying to help me out, and I really do appreciate your tips and your recommendations on how to get these eyeshadows to work. I have used it a few times now, and as much as it's not horrible, it's usable. It's just not worth the price tag. There's better out there, and especially for such a reputable brand, I just think it is, in my opinion, a flop, because there are so many products from the brand that I really love. So this one just kind of missed the mark. So this is the Feast Your Eyes Fall Eyeshadow Palette. To be fair, there are some really stunning shades, like these toppers, these glitter toppers. They are pretty. This one here, absolutely stunning. Look at the pigmentation. That is their Prismatallic eyeshadow formula. All of the formulas in this palette are new, and I was super pumped about it, but the only one I really fell in love with was the Prismatallic, and there's only one of it in the palette, so I was disappointed by that. Also, the glitter toppers are nice, like the two that I showed you. I would use, but there's also some shades in here that I just find should have been maybe the Prismatallic formula. I just don't know if this is maybe the most well thought out. I don't know how to describe it. Like this one here, this green shade is just like, in my personal opinion, does that not just look flat? It's supposed to be a glitter topper, but it's not even pigmented. It's not even that glittery. It's dull to me. The plummy glitter topper is a little bit better, to be fair. A little bit creamier, a little bit more pigmented. That one is pretty good. It's just that I feel they could have been so much better. Like, could have been richer, they could have been brighter, they could have been more pigmented. And then when it comes to this Leather Luster formula, which is supposed to be a cream to powder formula, it is pigmented upon swatch. You pick up quite a bit of product. It swatches pretty nicely, but it feels almost hard and waxy. Whereas if you were to go into the Natasha Denona and pick up a cream to powder from her, it feels so much creamier and not as hard. And because they are so hard, I find are hard to pick up with a brush. Now, to be fair, some people commented use a flat brush, which I do agree will typically pick up product in a more intense manner. But the shades that are this Leather Luster formula are supposed to be more crease shades. Now, you can use them on the lid, of course. I would use these shades to darken up the crease, to create a nice contour for the crease, blend it out, use it as a transition shade. And if I'm not able to use a fluffy blending brush, how am I going to achieve that effect? Does that make sense? Also, people commented saying that you can use your finger, which of course definitely pays off way better with your finger. But again, I wanted these dark matte shades for crease work, and you can't really get them to work as well as I would have liked. To be fair, you can build them and they do build up okay. It's just you have to put in extra work. And compared to other formulas, like I said, the Natasha Denona, I feel like they're just so much easier to work with. The Natasha Denona ones, like this one here is a cream to powder. You can apply it in the crease. It's immediately pigmented. It blends out like a typical matte formula, and it is just really, really rich. And like when you place it next to the pan, it looks as rich as the pan once you build it. These, even when you do build them, the Leather Luster, they don't ever really look as truly rich as they come off in the pan, which is kind of disappointing to me. So as much as this palette is not horrible, and you may get it and still enjoy it, and that's totally fine if you do like it. I just expected more, and that's why I don't think it's worth the money. I think there's better out there. So the last flop of the month, I've actually been sitting on this one. I've been wanting to share it as a flop, but I've been kind of on the fence because I've done some research, looked up some reviews, and some people think that it's really good, and I'm like, maybe it's me. Like, I did a review on this and I ended up not posting it because I was embarrassed. I'm like, am I like failing? Like, do I not know how to do eyeshadow anymore? And then I used it again and I'm like, it's still not that great. But then if I use another palette, it looks incredible. So I personally think this is a flop. This is the Violet Voss Cool Vibes eyeshadow palette. The reason is I just think that the pigmentation of the shades isn't as rich as I would like it to be, especially compared to some of my other favorite cool toned eyeshadow palettes. I have the Natasha Denona Glam palette, which I think is in some ways similar. And then I also have the Stone Cold Fox, which is obviously larger, but a similar idea. And both of these palettes, the metallics are much more pigmented, rich, light reflective, whereas these ones are more dull and kind of flat. And then the mattes are also much more rich, pigmented. The payoffs there, they blend out like a dream. They don't fade and lose their vibrancy and richness as you blend them out, whereas these ones I find did. So I'll show you an example. I'm going to swatch one of these metallics for you. This is the Violet Voss. Not bad, but do you see how it's just like kind of blah? It's kind of flat. I'll swatch one of the shades from the Natasha Denona. Obviously they're not going to be exact. Yeah, that's not a good example, but do you just see how much more pigmented it is? Let me do a different one. You just see how much more light reflective, how much more pigmented that is, whereas this one here is just a little more flat. Now, if you like more subtle shades, then maybe you'll love this palette, and that's totally fine. You can still get a subtle look with this palette, but if you want it to be bam, you can also get that. Whereas this, it doesn't matter if you wet it, it's still not even comparable. If you're looking for a more affordable option to compare to. The Colourpop palette, I'm gonna show you them side by side. We've got Colourpop, see how light reflective, how pigmented. We've got Violet Voss, looks kind of powdery, looks dull. The mattes really were my biggest issue with the Cool Vibes palette. I would blend them out and then it would look very faded and muddy, and I'd build it and I'd blend it and it would just get worse and worse. And I'm like, lack richness, they lack like depth. and when you blend them out, they kind of turn muddy and faded. So I personally really don't recommend this palette. I did a side-by-side look with this, and so I really do think that if you're looking for a cool toned palette, skip this. These two are definitely my top picks for cool toned palettes. That is the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed and found this video helpful. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.